Thank you very much, everybody. I'm John Baule, CEO of FutureView Systems, and I'm here with another episode of the FutureView Fireside Chat. That's always the hardest sentence to get through, by the way. All those F's, I have to really, enunciation is key.
Yeah.
Really excited today to be here with a longtime CFO and a friend of FutureView, Rob Johnson, who is the CFO of IANS Research. And a lot of things that are really interesting about Rob. I'm looking forward to kind of exploring them. Not too long ago, I saw a presentation he did on the 10 things to becoming a strategic CFO, and I'm like, wow, he just nailed it in so many ways. And I thought it'd be great to talk to him and share some of that with the broader audience. So why don't I start, Rob? I'd love to have you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, maybe a little bit about IANS Research. And
like John said, my name's Rob Johnson. I am a CFO up in the Boston area. I've kind of been there my whole career. I started my career in public accounting, so I came up through the accounting track. Did stints in both public accounting, and internal audit, and then kind of moved into more of a corporate finance track. Took a couple of years off early on and got my MBA at Indiana University. Then I came back and really started focusing on working in tech companies. And I was with a couple of companies that got acquired by large strategics. And for the last 10 years, I have been the CFO at IANS Research. So for those of you not familiar with us, IANS is a research and advisory services firm, and we serve the CISO and their team. So we work exclusively in the information security space. So it's been a nice field to be in for the last few years.
It's kind of, if people think of it sort of like a focused Gartner group, it sort of fits in that realm a little bit, kind of? Or?
Similar. I think the big difference is, two big differences is one, Gartner's a behemoth. So right. Gartner does everything. We are, like you said, we're very focused on information security. I think the difference in the way that we deliver our insights is we use a practitioner model. So we have about 130 what we call faculty members who are really subject matter experts in a kind of well-curated network of experts, whereas Gartner is more of an analyst model. So we focus much more on the nitty-gritty, the day-to-day, things that people are working on, and immediately in the job, and Gartner can be more theoretical.
Got it. I got you. It's something you can actually use. That makes total sense. I got to tell you, just as an aside, every time we have a meeting at FutureView about security, and we have some pretty good people, but it leaves me kind of scary. It's such a complicated world out there. So
it's terrifying, and it's what I've said about IANS for a number of years, and this is off the cuff, obviously, but we're kind of a wagon right now. But the only thing that can really derail us is a security breach. If we have a big security breach, that's a big problem for a security company.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
But same as you deal with such critical information that
And it's amazing how many people are constantly trying to attack your firewalls, and we can watch these things. And I told you I sometimes go off, but I was talking to this guy. There's a company that's in quantum computing, and I don't know if you know even what quantum computing is. I didn't really know, but it's basically, if you think about like a computer works by something's a 1 or something's a 0. And so you've got a certain, the more ones and zeros you can put together, the more different things there are. Quantum computing, it actually can look at all the values in between 1 and 0 and use those as, so it's like exponential in terms of how much processing power it has. And that's as far as I can go, because I really didn't know physics. But the point that came across me, he said, once they get to a certain size, and I thought it was like 40 qubits or something, a certain speed, and it's increasing all the time, no password will be able to be useful anymore. Because right now it might take you, 10,000 years to go through a password of this. It would be able to be every password would be able to be discovered in mere seconds. And I'm like, wow, what do you do then?
Yeah, no, it's the way the world is moving. It's why information. I mean, because you're talking about advances that are out there a ways, but
Yeah,
there are other advances that make best practices things that were best practices a year ago are obsolete now, and
yeah.
the pace of change in the industry is just incredibly impressive.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to jump into the CFO. That's as much as I really know about the technology of computer security. So I really want to hear more about your kind of path on the CFO thing. One of the things two things that have always struck me with you, Rob. One is just your tenure. You've really seen a company from early stages to where it is now. Let's face it, the average life cycle for a CFO, I think it's like 3 years, and you know. Going on what, just 10 years or so at IANS is pretty amazing. And then also, not only have you been there a long time, but you're one of the few CFOs I know who actually operates to a long range plan. Everybody talks about a long range plan, but hardly anybody actually keeps track of one and everything you do. I'd love to hear how that happened and your thoughts there.
Sure. So starting with the tenure, 10 years. I can tell you in my first year at IANS, you said my average tenure might be 3 years. I'm pretty sure back 10 years ago it was 18 to 24 months because I had those numbers glued in, memorized. And all I wanted to do was make it to 18 to 24 months so I could get my next CFO job, because it's just such a learning curve, and it's so overwhelming the first time you really move into that role. But since then, I've been very fortunate to be part of a great team. We really, we not only have a great culture at IANS, but we have a team that works incredibly hard, and those two things feed each other. And it's really been a critical part of our success. And, when everything's going well, my job's kind of, becomes easier.
Yeah.
So, and then in terms of the long-term focus, I think that's really, a byproduct of a couple of areas. First and foremost is our structure. We are a closely held entity. We don't have any financial sponsors in place. So, we get to make decisions that we believe are in the best interest of, the company over a longer period of time. And we don't need to look at, a quarter or a year or different types of metrics that can get put on you by outside sources.
Right.
So I think that's part of it, and I think the other part of it is we've known for a while that this industry in particular is important, and it was it was growing, and we saw an opportunity to carve out a role that wasn't just about creating a big company, but that was about serving a community. And, so that also allows us to focus more on, what is this going to look like in 2 or 3 years? And,
Right.
and the impact that decisions have on, and even use that in, when in the decision-making process.
Makes a lot of sense. How do you, when you think about these long-term, and I know you keep pretty detailed financial plans going forward and everything, it occurs to me that I used to be a long time ago with Bristol Myers, and every year we would do a 5-year plan. And I can tell you that I never remember a single time that we ever went back and said, when we're doing our budget or the next 5-year plan, what happened in the last 5-year plan? They always kind of disappeared in the mist.
That is absolutely true. And the way we do that is we just keep we have a 5-year rolling forecast that's built right into our current year plan. So as we're updating our current year plan, for what, as our forecasted numbers change, it directly impacts what, how we look at the future. And, and then it's just kind of when we need to model out different scenarios, it's just looking at the impact both in the current year and in the in the future.
Makes sense. How do you keep the the IANS management team sort of on board? Like, do you have a way that I imagine like every company, you guys probably have like the weekly or the every other week meeting where the management team gets together, and how do you frame that? How do you think about that?
Well, I mean, we get together several times a week.
Oh.
Not that we're talking about finances several times a week,
Right.
but we get together several times a week. Yeah, I think in terms of what you're asking, it really only comes up, four times a year in the QBRs, and then again in the budgeting process.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, we have a subscription business that's growing at a very high rate. And it's also a high margin business, so that allows us to make the investments that the individual managers need.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of how I think about it, it's more, what I want people to do is tell me everything they need to meet their goals, and then and then as we're going through the budgeting process, we can talk about trade-offs. Or as and same thing happens as different opportunities arise during the year. We can look at what the opportunity is, what we believe the benefit of it is, and how it's going to impact future. Especially if it's a recurring cost, how it's going to impact our future results. But in a business that is predominantly headcount, as ours is, it actually doesn't come up that frequently.
That's it seems like the more your numbers become embedded in the business, the more you sort of get everybody used to, hey, I've got the scoreboard and here's how it works and we all understand it, the less you actually have to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, everybody just knows, okay, yeah, if I do this, it'll lead to the right outcome,
Yeah, and that's definitely true. I also think, especially with the longer tenured, and really with the whole team, because we've brought in a bunch of new members on the management team, I think reputation goes a long way. So I think the longer tenured people know that, my focus is always on what's best for IANS.
Right.
So I might not agree with everything that they want to do. I might not support everything that they want to do, but I don't think anybody ever feels like there's a personal agenda at play. And I think that in a lot of organizations, can cause a lot of friction, and can inhibit growth. And here we just, we don't have a lot of that.
That says a lot to the culture. And I'm sure, given that you've been there 10 years, I'm sure that's in part the way you created it. And
if I'm being completely honest, that starts from the top. That starts with our CEO, who very much has created a culture of transparency in the organization, especially with his direct reports and the management team, and an insistence that we learn to play nice together. So
you're right.
Again, things that can be rare.
It does start at the top. You're right, and then it's not as easy to get people to work together as anybody believes. I mean, most of what holds companies back is not the resources or even the idea. It's getting everybody to work and play well together and think together. So, and I liked your list because you take a very non-ego driven kind of approach to the CFO role. Clearly you add a lot of value, but you don't necessarily thrust yourself into the center of it, so to speak.
Well, and I think that's very appropriate for the type of company we are. I mean, I think that I'm sure there are finance-led organizations, there are publicly traded organizations that have to hit a number where that type of leadership on a finance team would not work.
Yeah.
But for us, for what we're trying to do, it's what's needed.
Yeah. And you do the right thing, even in the short term. There's certain principles you want to follow. I love that also in your thing. You kind of had that pyramid of principles, and some of them were pretty foundational. Keep yourself healthy and focus on basic well-being. I love
That was my first. That's one of my cornerstone pieces is focus on your health, and it's I think you saw there were 4 components to it. There's sleep and exercise and mindfulness and nutrition, and one isn't any more important than the other, and they can all feed. They can have an exponential effect on the benefits can have an exponential effect. But what I've found is when I'm not doing those things, the stress and just the stress increases and the clarity in my thinking decreases, and it just takes me longer to get done,
Totally.
three times longer to get things done than they should. So
it would seem like that wasn't such a revolutionary idea, but when I go back and think, and I've been around a long time in the finance world, that was definitely kind of new thinking.
I agree. I mean, I think 2 things come. First of all, I was in public accounting when, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks during busy season were kind of a badge of honor.
Yep.
And and then I'm old enough to remember when multitasking was all the rage. And, people felt like, if you could get 3 things done at the same time that you were ahead of the game. But I've learned from my experiences that, I'm better off slowing down, taking a deep breath, doing one thing at a time, and only having to do them once. I have a saying on my team, always measure twice and cut once. Like you'll spend more time the other way.
Man, that is such a, I like the quote too, because it's exactly right. I can't tell you how many times I see this with systems, people rush out. We need a new system. Well, okay, why? Okay, what exactly are you trying to do? Step back. And in fact, I read this great book. I was going to say something else, but I'll say this. I read this great book about why projects fail. And this guy pulled together, or how many projects fail. And this guy pulled a database of all the projects, big projects that were done in the world above a certain threshold. And it was just like tens of thousands. And he got McKinsey to help him. And they looked at how many of them delivered all the benefits people wanted on costs, came in under cost, under time, and delivered the benefits people wanted. And the number that actually succeeded was like 0.5%. I mean, it was literally hardly anybody ever completed a project successfully.
Yeah, probably right around the same percentage as kind of seed round level startups.
Exactly. I think your big dig got mentioned in that book too.
I hope that wasn't counted as one of the successes, because that was an absolute. Having lived through it, that was a nightmare.
I remember that for the whole decade or so that it went on.
At least.
I was thinking about the health thing you mentioned, because one of my early experiences, I'd love to hear more about your public accounting experience, because I also started in public accounting back when it was the Big 8. And I remember one of the first clients I got put on, it was a meat packing company in Southeast Washington, D.C., which was a rough place back then. And the guy who I was supposed to be helping was a controller there. And let's just say he was not tall, but he was wide, and he smoked. I've never seen anybody move from cigarette to cigarette as fast as him. It was like, he was almost like he was keeping 2 at a time. And the only thing he stopped smoking for was to drink more coffee. And so one day, and he worked all the time. I don't think I ever saw him leave. And I kept thinking, wow, this guy, is this what accounting is like? And one day he's really upset, and he goes, I have to go to the doctor. And he's mad, like he has to go. And he said, I'm only going to be gone for a little while, but I got to go. They made me. So he comes back, starts working. He's like 45 minutes. He's gone and back really fast. And I said, how was it? And he goes, I don't want to think about it, but they said I have high cholesterol, and I know a little. I said, my dad had high cholesterol. I said, so what's the level? He goes, they said it's about 400. And they said, these headaches, I'm having little headaches. He said, they're actually little mini strokes. And I'm looking at him like, holy cow. I don't even want to be, around you. But but that was my idea of what a Baule was like at the time. Thank God that's changed a little bit.
It's changed. Oh yeah. A lot, we've progressed a lot in a short period of time when it comes to that. So
If you're looking to rapidly transform your finance function, visit us at FutureViewSystems.com.